The Boston Celtics actually won the Jaylen Brown trade. I know that sounds crazy to say, and I know many fans believe the Celtics got fleeced. And I'm not here to clickbait you or anything. I'm going to give you straight facts. Let's take a deeper dive into why this trade actually benefits the Celtics more than the 76ers. Let's start with a quick recap of the trade, where 2024 Finals MVP Jaylen Brown just came off the best regular season of his career, averaging 28.7 points, 6.9 rebounds, 5.1 assists on 48% efficiency from the field, 35% from beyond the arc. The Celtics traded away JB for 36-year-old aging Paul George, along with the 2028 and 2031 first-round pick and 2 second-round picks. Now, on paper, it does look like the Celtics just kind of gifted the Sixers another superstar to the team. In addition with Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, VJ Edgecombe. Very solid team there. But as we dive deeper, we realize that the Celtics actually come out on top of this trade. Jaylen Brown's massive stat inflation solely came due to the absence of Jason Tatum for the majority of the season. Tatum's returning for the full season next season, so after Giannis became unavailable for Boston, the Celtics were looking for a player who would fit into a complementary role under Mazzulla's scheme, rather than somebody who has a massive on-ball usage, such as Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown has struggled throughout his entire career to win in the playoffs as a leader of a team. Obviously, he has great success in the playoffs and in the regular season, but as a leader of a team, he has struggled to win, as we saw last year. I do understand he had an amazing season last year, and he led Boston to the second seed in the East, as they were projected to be pretty much nothing without Tatum, and they lost a bunch of big pieces. But none of that really matters when he doesn't show up in the playoffs, because when Tatum was out in Game 7 against Philly, it was pretty much a guaranteed win for the Sixers after you saw that JB had to lead the team. And I have stats to prove this. And JB shows up, but you can't trust him to lead the team. And I'll get more into that in a minute. But in Game 5 of the series, JB had 22 points, shooting for 9 for 23 with a minus 17 plus minus. In Game 6, JB had 18 points on 7 for 17 with 5 crucial turnovers and a minus 24 plus minus. And then in Game 7, with no Jason Tatum, he managed to put up 33 points, but only took him 27 shots with the team worst minus 16 plus minus. Now, I'm not saying this is enough to trade him away based off just this, but when you don't have that clutch factor, you can't be a second option while getting paid like a first option. And he's a great player, JB, JT, one of the best duos in the league. In my opinion, they're probably the best of duos in the league, top 2 at least. And obviously it sucks that they split them up. But like I said, you can't be a second option, and then you can't not show up for your team as a first option, and then and then want to be paid like a first option, because he's on a supermax, and you're not even a first option in your team. You're bound to get traded at some point. But if we look at the Celtics as a team, without Jaylen Brown, they're 36-6 in the last 3 seasons, and 90-36 since his entrance to the league. With Brown off the floor, Tatum and Pritchard's impact jumped drastically, which obviously they're both, getting to the peak of their career, both pushing 30 now. But after 10 years with Boston, Jaylen Brown still finished his Celtics career with a negative on-court, off-court differential. And statistically, I wouldn't believe it if I didn't see the stats myself. But statistically, Jaylen Brown suppresses his teammates scoring the most out of anybody else in the league. Which, it's not too crazy to say, but it is, it does make sense that why, they want to get rid of him. Now, for me, I think they could have got more back, I get trading him for Giannis. I get that way more. Even trading him for some younger players and more depth. And to be honest, I'm not sure why they chose Paul George out of anybody to trade him for. I don't get that logic, I'm gonna be real. But if we bring up Paul George, I do think he is a great asset for JT. Like I said, I know he's old, but he shot almost 40% from three on 7 attempts per game last season. Obviously, he was sat out for being suspended, but he showed up in the playoffs, unlike Jaylen Brown did in some of those crucial games, the clutch games. But JB typically needs the ball in his hands to be effective, whereas Paul George is elite at catch and shooting, which fits perfectly with JT and the Celtics scheme under Joe Mazzulla. Paul George averaged less than 2 turnovers per game last season, proving that he is way safer with the ball than Jaylen Brown, as JB's kind of not known for, but he is kind of somewhat of a turnover machine. So this will limit many unnecessary turnovers that Boston had last season due to JB, and it honestly could improve at least their scoring. I don't think they'll obviously win as many games, but Boston should still be a top 4 team in the East. Based off their roster right now, obviously, the offseason is just getting started. Who knows what other additions or trades will be happening. But for now, I think Boston could still be a top 4 team in the East. But yeah, Paul George is known for having a bad contract, but his contract is still financially better for the Celtics than JB, because Jaylen Brown he would be accumulating $183 million over the next 3 years. Paul George only has $54.1 million for the next year, with a $56.6 million player option, which will help Boston out financially in the long term, allowing them to pay for a more talented bench and just more depth all around. Now, the last thing I really wanted to bring up was the draft picks. They don't seem like much for now, and I don't know if they're going to be that big of a deal. And to be honest, I think they should have got more for their more draft capital for this trade. But with what they got as a 2028 and 2028 and a 2031 first round pick and 2 second round picks, I think, but with what it's looking like, 2028 might not mean that much. I'm not really sure what the draft class is looking like come then, but the 2031 could mean a little bit more, because as Joel Embiid continues to age and just as he's been very injury prone, by the time 2031 comes around, which I know is a long time, it's 5 years from now, but by the time 2031 comes around, the Celtics or the Sixers will probably be a lottery team at that point. Without Embiid, obviously they'll still have young talent, or they'll be aging, but they'll still have Maxey, Edgecombe, maybe Jaylen Brown. Kind of depends on who gets traded, who becomes a free agent. But Sixers will most likely be a lottery team around that time, and by that time is when the Celtics have the Sixers unprotected first round pick, which will hopefully allow for a good draft for the Celtics. They'll have 2 first rounders that year, and if everything works out for Boston, could keep Boston or keep the Celtics from being good for another decade or so at least. Now, I do think it sucks that Boston split up one of the best duos in the league in Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, but I also think Boston shouldn't have rushed this trade. And I'm sure that they could have got some more talent than an aging Paul George. But for what it's worth, I do think the Celtics will still come out on top of this trade. And maybe next season they won't have a better record than the Sixers. They probably won't make it as far in the playoffs as the Sixers. But I do think the Celtics will still be a top 3, top 4 team in the East. And within the next 5 years, they'll be a top 3 team in the league probably. And they'll probably get another finals appearance at some point. They got a lot of young talent still. They still got draft capital. So I think Celtics fans shouldn't be too upset about this trade. If anything, I think you should just be more upset about JB and JT getting split up. But I really don't think this trade is as bad as people are making it seem. People are comparing it to the Luka trade. People are comparing it, saying this is one of the worst trades in sports history. I would never go that far with this. I think I think it's not too bad of a trade. Obviously, it looks a lot worse on paper, but I think not even in the long run, just in general, I think Boston has a good chance to make something work with it. Ultimately, my message to Celtics fans would just be that Brad Stevens is a top GM in the league, and he might have another trade in the works. He might have some big free agency signings on the way. I mean, who knows? But you got to have some faith in him. You got to have some trust in him, because not trying to offend anybody here, but I promise you he's a lot smarter than anybody watching this. And he's had great history with the program as a coach and as a GM. And just as a coach at Butler, like, he's very smart when it comes to the game of basketball. And I don't think he makes this trade if he doesn't have somewhat of a plan. I'm sure he knows what he's doing. And like I said, it might not look pretty right now, and I'm sure most people that are upset are more so just upset about JB and JT getting split up, which I get that. But this trade's not going to be as bad as people are making it seem, I think. I think people are overreacting quite a bit to this trade. And within the next 2-3 years, you'll miss Jaylen Brown, I'm sure. But it'll be similar to the Marcus Smart trade, where you'll realize, like, oh, this actually benefited us, Like, it sucks to lose the guy, but hey, the Celtics benefited from this. Now, that's my opinion on this trade. You guys can let me know your opinions, hot takes about this trade, about any off-season, moves that have been going on. Let me know in the comments. Make sure to like, subscribe, and I'll be posting more pretty much daily throughout the off-season.